Cindy thought she had it all: a solid marriage, a respected career, and a daughter who was her pride. But in a single day, that perfect life collapsed under the weight of a cruel truth: betrayal. Secrets hidden for years and a devastating loss placed Cindy before the greatest challenge of her life. Between tears, impossible choices, and the fight to protect those she loves, she will discover that even in pain, a new strength can be born. And maybe even a new love. Follow this gripping romance of betrayal, downfall, and resilience, proving that when everything falls apart, a life even stronger and truer can rise from the ashes. Before we continue, know this: your opinion is very important to us. So if you're enjoying this story, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. This simple, kind gesture will help us create more emotional stories just for you. At 38, Cindy was a respected doctor with loyal patients who treated her almost as part of their families. Her private practice flourished, giving her stability. The spacious home in an upscale neighborhood reflected years of dedication, and her marriage to John seemed solid in everyone's eyes. Her daughter, Sophia, 13, bright and full of dreams. There was something in the air that spoke of order, as if life had reached a perfect balance, almost cinematic, where nothing could disturb the image of an ideal home. John, a successful businessman, traveled often and always had plausible excuses for his long absences. Laura, Cindy's best friend for 2 decades, was ever present: birthdays, trips, even intimate family gatherings. The trust was so complete that Cindy never questioned their closeness. "Friends are our second family," John often said, reinforcing that bond of complicity. Everything seemed natural, life flowing like a perfect script. But even fairy tales have cracks invisible to the accustomed eye. That September morning, Cindy packed her suitcase for an important medical conference in another state. She was excited, eager to present her research, and kissed John goodbye lightly, while Sophia wished her luck before heading to school. The car was already waiting at the gate to take her to the airport, but unexpected traffic made her late, and she missed her flight. Frustrated, she decided to return home and reorganize her day. As she stepped through the gate, a strange shiver ran down her spine, as though destiny had just altered its course through a single detail. A missed flight would become the spark of an explosion that would forever change the woman who believed she lived inside a perfect tale. Silence can scream louder than any word. Cindy entered her house expecting to find it empty, but something felt out of place. The curtains were drawn, blocking the morning light, and a sweet, unfamiliar scent floated in the air. Not coffee, not flowers. Climbing the stairs, each step pounded in her chest like a drum. She tried to convince herself there was nothing wrong, that maybe it was just fatigue or imagination. But when the master bedroom door swung open, her world collapsed, the shock nearly knocking her to the floor. John was lying on the bed, half-dressed, as if moments before he had been intimate. Cindy's heart raced. For an instant she thought he might simply be resting, but then she heard it, a soft laugh, a woman's voice coming from the bathroom. Her blood turned to ice. Slowly, breath ragged, hand trembling, she reached for the doorknob. When she opened it, her world ended. There, wrapped only in a towel, stood Laura, her friend, her confidant, her sister in spirit. The impact was so violent that words stuck in Cindy's throat. "No, no," she stammered, stepping back as if the vision were a mirage. Laura's eyes widened, her face twisted in guilt and fear. "Cindy, I didn't want it to be like this." John leapt from the bed, pulling on his pants. "Calm down, I can explain." "Explain?" Cindy's voice exploded, cutting through the air like thunder. "You're in my bed. And with who? With the person I trusted most in this life. Laura reached forward, hands trembling. Cindy, please, listen to me. Don't touch me, Cindy screamed, eyes burning with tears. 20 years of friendship. You came into my home, played with my daughter, pretended to be my friend, while stabbing me in the back. John tried to speak, but Cindy's voice drowned him. 15 years. She spat the words, breathless. 15 years of marriage, and you two deceiving me, smiling at me, looking me in the eyes and lying. What else? What more are you hiding from me? Laura wept, her towel slipping from her shoulders, but said nothing. John, cornered, raised his hands as if to contain the storm. I was going to tell you, I swear. Cindy let out a bitter, broken laugh. The right time to destroy my life, to throw away everything I built. Her tears fell, but her voice grew stronger. You took everything. From me, my marriage, my best friend, my trust. With her chest burning, Cindy stormed out, slamming the door so hard the sound echoed down the hallway like the announcement of an era's end. She wandered aimlessly until stopping at a hotel. That night in the cold room felt endless. She dropped her suitcase to the floor and collapsed onto the bed, strength gone. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of the air conditioner. Staring at the ceiling, eyes blurred with tears, she tried to understand when her perfect life had shattered. Images replayed like waves, John on the bed, Laura stepping out of the bathroom, their guilty faces, their cowardly excuses. She pressed the pillow to her face and cried like she hadn't since childhood, sobs that tore her soul and shook her body. Between gasps, she whispered to herself, 20 years of friendship, 15 years of marriage. I'm the fool who believed them all. Hours passed, but sleep never came. Each time she closed her eyes, the scene replayed like a photograph burned into her memory. She picked up her phone over and over, thinking of calling John, Laura, even Sophia. But her hands trembled, and she gave up. How could she explain to her daughter that her father and godmother had destroyed their family? Her heart ached. Sophia was her greatest concern, the innocent one who would now be crushed by the cruel truth. Around 3 a.m, Cindy rose and stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror. Red eyes, swollen face, the expression of a defeated woman. I won't end here, she whispered to herself. The pain was suffocating, but inside her, a spark of fury began to burn. The next morning, still sleepless, Cindy returned home. The gate creaked open with a metallic groan, like the sound of war approaching. John sat in the living room, shirt buttoned, face tired as if he hadn't slept either. He stood as soon as she entered. Cindy, we need to talk. Talk? She cut him off, her voice sharp. After betraying me with my best friend, after turning me into a joke in my own house, you have nothing to talk about. John tried to approach, but she stepped back. I know I made a mistake. I know you're hurt, but we need to think about Sophia. Cindy laughed bitterly. Don't use our daughter's name as a shield, John. Sophia deserves the truth. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. Look me in the eyes and tell me, in these 15 years, did you ever truly love me? Or was I just a facade, a convenience? John took a deep breath, moving toward her slowly, as though rehearsing a well-learned part. His eyes were steady, but carried a flicker of desperation. Cindy, you have to believe me. What happened, it was a mistake, nothing more. The word hung in the air like poison. Mistake. Cindy's eyes widened, but John pressed on. Yes, I made a mistake and I regret it every day, but I love you. I've always loved you. Laura means nothing. It was weakness, loneliness, and error. I don't want her. I want you, us, our family. Cindy stood frozen, her legs failing her. Tears burned her skin again. Part of her wanted to scream, throw him out, end it all right there. But another part Another part remembered Sophia, the daughter who didn't yet know of the betrayal, the girl who saw her father as a hero and would weep if her family shattered. Cindy clenched her fists, trying to contain the rage. "A mistake?" she whispered, voice low and trembling with pain. "You shared my bed with her. My friend, and you dare call that a mistake?" John moved closer, gently touched her arm. "I won't give up on you. I can fix this, but I need you to give me a chance." Her heart was divided, mind at war. Pride demanded she leave, but the fear of loneliness and the image of her daughter's tears pulled her back. Exhausted, soul torn, Cindy sank onto the sofa. John knelt before her, trying to take her hands. "We'll get through this, together, I swear." His eyes shone with an emotion that seemed sincere, but to Cindy it all felt like manipulation. Closing her eyes, she drew a deep breath, fighting the flood of emotions. I need time," she finally said, rising with difficulty. "I need to think. For Sophia. For me." She left the room without looking back. John remained alone, his face hiding a faint, almost imperceptible smile. The smile of a man who believed he was still winning. The morning sun seemed to mock the darkness Cindy carried in her chest. She walked aimlessly, lost in her own thoughts, trying to decipher whether she had been foolish to listen to John or if by some miracle he could truly change. But suddenly, her steps froze. Across the street, a familiar silhouette entered an elegant baby clothing boutique. Cindy's heart raced. Laura. The friend, the betrayer, the woman who had shattered the trust that once sustained her life. Without a second thought, she crossed the street, blood boiling, and followed her inside. Laura stood in front of a tiny white dress, her fingers brushing the fabric with a tender smile that clashed cruelly with the truth Cindy now knew. Cindy approached slowly, her voice sharp with controlled fury. "So this is it? You shop for baby clothes after destroying an entire family?" Laura turned slowly, surprise flickering only for a moment before a mocking smile spread across her lips. "Cindy. What a coincidence." Cindy couldn't hold back her rage. "John humiliated himself before me, said he used you, that it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. He begged me not to leave him." Laura's laugh echoed through the boutique, drawing the attention of a few customers nearby. "Naive," she sneered, lifting her chin. "You really believed that nonsense. You still don't understand who you're dealing with." Cindy felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as Laura stepped closer, her eyes glittering with cruelty. "I'm pregnant, Cindy." The words hit like a dagger, knocking the air from Cindy's lungs. "And it's not just some meaningless fling like he tried to make it sound. It's been 10 years, 10 years of secrets, of meetings, of a double life." Laura's smile was venomous, triumphant. "While you were content being the perfect wife, I was the woman he truly desired." Cindy stumbled back a step, her body trembling, tears threatening to break through the wall of dignity she clung to. The boutique spun around her, her heart pounding like a war drum in the chaos. The pain burned like fire, but with it came a new strength, something primal, unyielding in the face of humiliation. Cindy lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the tremor. "This isn't victory, Laura. It's sickness, and I swear you and John will not destroy me." She turned and walked away, Laura's laughter trailing behind her. But inside Cindy, a flame began to ignite, born of rage, courage, and, for the first time in years, a taste of freedom. Cindy drove for hours with no destination, Laura's cruel laugh echoing in her mind. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder of betrayal, each breath a crushing weight. She tried to cling to rational thought, but anger and grief swirled inside her like a storm. The car roared down the asphalt until the fuel gauge flashed red. Reluctantly, she pulled into the nearest gas station. "Just another obstacle," she muttered, forcing a dry smile, though deep down she knew her world was unraveling completely. She jumped out of the car, grabbed her wallet, and swiped her card at the terminal. A red light blinked, followed by words that seemed to mock her existence. "Invalid or cancelled card." Cindy felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She tried again, desperate, but the result was the same. Her face paled, her fingers shook. "This can't be," she whispered, trying to convince herself it was a system error, a passing glitch. She leaned against the car, her breath unsteady, her hands clutching her head. Rage mixed with despair. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of a shared life, now reduced to betrayal, cancelled cards, destroyed plans. What John had called a mistake now revealed itself as strategy, the cold calculation of a man who had plotted her downfall. Through tears and stifled sobs, she pulled out what little cash she had, paid, and left. Cindy realized she wasn't just betrayed. She had been stripped bare, impoverished, isolated. For the first time, she felt the fragility of her position. Pride couldn't even buy her a tank of gas. Her life of luxury was collapsing before her very eyes, reality clawing at her with every denied cent. The elevator rose slowly, each floor stretching time, anticipating the storm Cindy carried inside her. She clutched her purse against her body, her breath uneven, her eyes locked on her own reflection in the metallic walls. At the top floor, the doors slid open into John's office. Impeccable as always, clean, gleaming, but meaningless now in the face of her silent fury. He stood by the window, gazing out over the city. When he turned and saw her, the smile that once charmed now oozed only arrogance. "Cindy," he began, but she cut him off before he could say more. "Enough, John!" She advanced, her voice raw with rage and pain. "My patience is gone. 10 years of betrayal. 10 years!" John's face tightened, but he tried to maintain composure. "I can explain." "Explain?" she snapped. "You betrayed me with my best friend, and now I find out she's pregnant." Her voice rose, echoing through the office. John drew in a deep breath, trying to reclaim control. "I didn't want you to find out this way. It's complicated. But I love you, Cindy. I don't want to lose you." "Love?" Cindy let out a hollow laugh, her eyes blazing. "Love is building a life together, not lying and manipulating for a decade." She stepped closer, her gaze piercing his. "I know everything, John. There are no excuses. And if you think I'll just forget or accept this humiliation, you're wrong." John faltered, surprised by her resolve, searching for words to soothe the fire he'd ignited. "Cindy, I can fix this. We can work it out." She shook her head, breathing hard, fighting against the knot in her chest. "I need time. I need to think. And while I do, understand this. You don't control my life anymore. I decide what happens now." The silence that followed was suffocating. Cindy turned, leaving John alone, his eyes reflecting for the first time a flicker of helplessness. Each step she took out of that office was a small victory, proof that even in the ruins, strength could still rise. Back at home, the phone rang sharply. Cindy answered, her voice trembling, trying to sound composed. "Hello?" On the other end, a male voice, firm yet courteous. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Cindy. This is the Central Bank. We're calling because your clinic's accounts have been overdue for more than 3 months. Payments were not made, and certain operations have been suspended." Cindy froze. "The clinic? That can't be. She tried to argue, but the voice pressed on, relentless. We attempted several contacts with no response. We must resolve this immediately to avoid protests or legal action." The truth hit her like a brick to the chest. Every part of her carefully built life was crumbling. The clinic, her pride, her years of work wasn't just in danger. It was drowning in hidden debts, bounced checks, unauthorized transfers. John, with his cold and calculating skill, had orchestrated everything. It was clear. He hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, he had dismantled her financially, leaving her defenseless. Cindy clutched the phone as her throat burned with rage and despair. "But how?" she stammered, unable to find words. As she hung up, her mind filled with memories of every moment she'd trusted John, the laughter, the embraces, the plans for their daughter and their future. All of it now seemed like a lie. Through tears and ragged breaths, Cindy realized the battle ahead wasn't only emotional, it was legal, financial, a war for survival. Hours later, the school bus dropped Sophia at home. Cindy gathered her strength, stood, and walked to her daughter. Sophia sat on the couch, her face hidden behind a book, but her red eyes betrayed that she had been crying. Cindy sat down beside her, her voice trembling but soft. "Sophia, we need to talk," she began gently. "It's about your father, about our family." The girl snapped the book shut, glaring at her mother, eyes blazing with hurt. "I already..." "No, Mom. You're going to divorce Dad, aren't you?" Cindy's chest tightened, every word from her daughter like a knife. "No, my love. It's not that. I just want you to know the truth, to understand what happened." Sophia stood, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "I don't want to, Mom. I want to stay with him. I don't want to leave our home. I don't want my life to change." Cindy swallowed hard, fighting back tears, though the weight of abandonment and loss pressed heavily on her. "Sophia, I'm not sending you anywhere," she said softly. "But you have to understand. Your father betrayed me. He deceived us. And now, we have to rebuild our lives." The girl crossed her arms, defiant. "Rebuild? I don't want to rebuild anything without my dad. I want him." Cindy's tears surfaced, this time mixed with restrained anger. "I know it hurts, sweetheart, but you have to trust me. Your father made a mistake, and I need to separate from him." Sophia averted her gaze, but the determination in her eyes did not falter. "I don't care. I'm staying with him." Cindy drew in a deep breath, feeling the sting of rejection, but also the spark of something rising inside her, strength, courage, and the certainty that she needed to fight, not only for what she had lost, but for the future she could still conquer for them both. That night, John returned home. Sophia, after hours of crying, had finally fallen asleep. Cindy sat in the darkened living room waiting for him. When the door creaked open, she heard his voice. "Cindy, let's talk." But she gave him no room. "Enough, John." Her voice sliced through the air, firm, cold, loaded with pain and fury. 10 years of betrayal with my best friend. Laura is pregnant, and now I find out my accounts are overdue. My clinic drowning in debt, overdue bills, illegal transfers. You destroyed everything, and you have no right to ask me to talk." John's expression shifted subtly, the mask of remorse slipping. I just wanted you to understand." Cindy laughed bitterly. "Understand? You're a liar, a manipulator." She advanced toward the table, locking eyes with him. "Don't think I'll allow you to come back home. I won't let you destroy my life any further." John leaned against the table, arms crossed, and let out a low, cruel laugh that echoed through the silent room. "Home?" His voice dripped with disdain. "This house is mine, Cindy. It's always been mine. I pay every cent. I built all of this. It doesn't matter what you think or feel. And if you believe you can keep me from entering, you're wrong." The shock stole her breath, but she didn't back down. Anger flared inside her like a living flame. "You don't intimidate me, John. You may have stolen our story, but you won't steal me now. You won't control my life. You won't control my daughter, and you won't humiliate me anymore." She drew in a trembling breath, fighting to steady her courage. "You're just a man hiding behind lies and power. I'm not afraid of you anymore." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Cindy retreated to the guest room, and after hours of sobbing, her exhausted body finally surrendered to sleep. The next morning, upon waking, she walked into their bedroom and froze at the sight of suitcases piled on the bed. She opened one and realized they were her belongings. Just as she pieced it together, John entered. Nervous, incredulous, she asked, "What is this supposed to mean?" John looked at her with contempt, a cold smile curving his lips. "Cindy, you still don't get it, do you?" he said, stepping slowly toward her. "This house, this life, all these assets, they're mine. They've always been mine." Rage surged through her, tangled with disbelief. "You're insane. How can you say that after everything?" she cried, trembling with emotion. "There's nothing left to discuss," he snapped, his voice sharp and cutting. "I want you out. Now." The ground fell away beneath Cindy's feet, but she refused to surrender to humiliation. "You won't stop me from fighting for what's mine, John," she said firmly, clutching her clothes with trembling hands. John let out a sarcastic laugh, watching her walk away with steady steps, though visibly wounded by her refusal to bow down. "Get out," he repeated. "This house is mine." Head held high, Cindy gathered her things and left, her chest heavy with a storm of pain, indignation, and determination. In that moment, the illusion of a perfect life shattered completely. But something new was born, the certainty that the fight for her dignity, her assets, and for Sophia had only just begun. Every step away from that house was a silent declaration. She would not be destroyed. And this was only the beginning of her rebuilding. Cindy closed the door of the small apartment she had just rented. Modest, with simple furniture and faded walls, it stood in stark contrast to everything she once had: the spacious home, the luxury, the thriving clinic. She placed her suitcase in the corner of the room, took a deep breath and walked slowly through the space, the weight of solitude pressing on her chest. Silence was her only companion, broken only by the faint hum of the clock on the wall. She knew this marked the start of a new chapter, not the one she wanted, but the one she had to face. Every step across that apartment reminded her just how drastically her life had changed. In the days that followed, Cindy began facing the first real consequences of financial ruin. Bills piled up, each one like a blade, cutting through her resolve, proof that John had left nothing behind. A sudden phone call from the clinic shattered what little hope she still held. "Dr. Cindy, we need to talk." The receptionist's voice trembled with concern. "The electricity, water, and supplier bills haven't been paid. We're receiving legal notifications." The ground fell away beneath her once more. The clinic she had built with so much effort, the pride of years of work, was on the brink of collapse, crushed by debts that weren't even hers. Helplessness suffocated her. She sat on the sofa of her small apartment, hugging her knees, her chest tight, her mind spinning. What once seemed impossible now loomed real. Cindy was alone, bankrupt, her world crumbling. The modest walls seemed to close in, each sound from the street outside mocking her downfall. Yet, amid the pain and despair, a spark ignited. Determination not to let herself be defeated. If John believed she would vanish, he was gravely mistaken. Even in pieces, Cindy knew she had to fight to reclaim not just her clinic, but her dignity and her life. A week later, Cindy stepped into the clubhouse for an old friend's birthday party. The friend had insisted she come. She tried to mask the tension coursing through her body, her mind a whirlwind. Dressed simply, though with elegance, she carried herself with composure, but every step revealed the fragility she felt inside. The soft lights and music filled the air with celebration, but to her every laugh sounded false, every conversation laced with judgment. As she approached a group of women, she caught the sting of whispered words. She finally realized she couldn't hold on to her husband, one voice said, followed by muffled laughter. That marriage was doomed. He got tired of her irresponsibility. Another voice chimed in, sharper, crueler. Imagine losing the clinic, the money, and even her daughter. All her fault. Cindy felt her face burn, her throat tighten. Tears prick her eyes. Every word was a dagger. She had always taken pride in her work, her conduct, her devotion to her daughter, and now every outside judgment twisted her private pain into public humiliation, as though everyone had conspired to remind her of her downfall. She drew in a deep breath, struggling to maintain composure, while fury and grief coursed through her. The party buzzed around her, but for Cindy, the world turned heavy, silent. She was alone, isolated, discredited, surrounded by the very people she once called friends. Cindy left the clubhouse slowly, her body heavy, her head spinning. The whispers still echoed in her mind like barbed thorns digging into her confidence. The night air did nothing to ease the tightness in her chest, nor the bitter taste of humiliation. Every step down the street amplified her loneliness, and for a fleeting moment she wished she could disappear into the crowd, escape all the stares and judgments haunting her. But then, something unexpected happened. She collided with someone, stumbling back a step. "I'm sorry," she blurted out, glancing up. The eyes staring back at her were instantly familiar, unmistakable. Maycow, her college sweetheart, the man who had never forgotten her. He stood there, elegant and steady, his expression both curious and concerned. Cindy's heart raced, a rush of surprise, nerves, and old memories. "Cindy?" His voice was low, filled with disbelief and a trace of emotion. "Maycow?" She whispered, her voice trembling. "It's been so long." He stepped closer, cautiously, as though afraid to break something fragile. The world seemed to shrink around them, the dark night pressing in, contrasting with the intensity of this unexpected reunion. The weight of her recent struggles mingled with something else, comfort, safety. She started, then faltered, unsure how to explain her broken life, the betrayal, the humiliation, the pain she carried. Maycow extended his hand, hesitant, yet firm. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, reading the exhaustion and sadness etched into her. Cindy inhaled deeply, fighting back tears, determined not to look weak. "No, not completely," she admitted at last. "But maybe it's good to see someone familiar, someone who still knows who I am." He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips, and in that instant, a fragile but real hope flickered in Cindy's heart. After so much collapse, maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. Maycow noticed the tremor in Cindy's voice and the tension in every one of her gestures. Gently, he placed a hand on her arm, just enough to transmit safety. "Let's sit down for a bit," he suggested, his voice calm, steady, offering refuge. Cindy drew a deep breath, hesitating for a moment, but her emotional exhaustion won over. She agreed, and together they walked to a small cafe nearby, still open, its warm yellow lights casting a welcoming glow. They sat at a table tucked away in the corner, far from the bustle, and for the first time Cindy felt she could tell her truth without interruptions, without judgmental eyes. "Maycow," she began, the words slipping out slowly, as if every syllable weighed a ton. "I don't even know where to start." He encouraged her with a nod, his eyes intent, patient, in no rush. "Try. I'm listening." Cindy swallowed hard, clasping her hands on the table, and began unraveling her story. John, the 10-year betrayal with Laura, the pregnancy, the collapse of her clinic, the cancelled credit cards, the public humiliation, the whispers from friends. Each word carried pain, anger, and disbelief. "And I don't know how to put myself back together, Maycow," she confessed, her eyes brimming with tears. "It feels like everything I built vanished in just a few days." Maycow remained silent, but his silence was comforting, not judgmental. When Cindy finally finished, she breathed deeply, feeling a small weight lift from her chest. "Cindy," he began, his voice firm, yet gentle, "I never stopped believing in you. Not in your strength, not in your ability to rise again, and I want to help you. Not only as a friend, but as someone who understands the law, who understands families, and who knows how to face people who manipulate and betray." Cindy looked at him, surprised and moved, feeling for the first time in days that maybe there was hope, that someone could truly help her reclaim not just her life, but her dignity. Between pain and hope, she realized this. Reunion might be the start of a turning point, something that until now had seemed impossible. The next morning's sunlight felt almost mocking when Cindy arrived at Maycow's office, clutching a folder stuffed with documents, contracts, and receipts she had once believed were under her control. Each step down the hallway grew heavier than the last, burdened with the weight of finally acting, of turning pain into action. Maycow greeted her with a calm, reassuring smile, but his eyes immediately noticed the mix of determination, tension, and vulnerability radiating from Cindy, someone about to face the unimaginable. "Ready to show the world who you really are, Cindy?" he asked, his voice steady, encouraging. She nodded, taking a deep breath, letting the weight of the folder also serve as a release for her pent-up anxiety. They sat in the conference room, light filtering through the tall windows and illuminating the papers scattered across the table. Cindy opened the folder carefully and began recounting every detail, every suspicious transaction, every contract John had manipulated. "He hid everything from me," she said, her eyes wet, though her voice remained steady. "He transferred money, piled up debts in my name, and now he wants to make me look irresponsible." Maycow listened intently, taking notes, analyzing each document. His expression grew more serious with every revelation. "Cindy, what you've brought here is more than enough to start a case," he said firmly. "This clearly shows his intent to manipulate you and conceal assets." As they organized the papers and discussed legal strategies, Cindy felt a strange mix of relief and nervousness. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't alone. There was a plan, a way to fight back against the injustice John had orchestrated. "We'll move carefully," Maycow assured, meeting her gaze. "But we will move. You'll recover not just what's yours, but also your dignity." Cindy breathed deeply, a spark of hope igniting inside her as she realized she could finally fight in a concrete way for what had been stolen. Every document handed over was not only a step toward legal retribution, but also toward rebuilding her life. The shock and pain came in waves, making it hard to breathe. Cindy felt her eyes burn, but she held back the tears. She tried greeting a few friends, but was met with cold stares, faint fake smiles, and whispers that quickly faded the moment she approached. "So this is how it is," she thought. "In just a few days, everything I built has turned invisible. Every gesture of friendship, every laugh shared, all of it now feels like it belonged to someone else." She sat at a table off to the side, watching Laura at the center of attention, laughing, radiant, elegant, while the comments about Cindy seemed to float in the air like sharp knives. The sting of social betrayal mingled with her personal pain, making the days unbearably heavy. The days that followed were tense. Laura and John had officially moved into the house that once belonged to Cindy. Her chest tightened each time she realized her daughter was still struggling to accept the new reality. But something began to change when Sophia finally saw the truth, that her father and Laura were no longer trustworthy, no longer the protectors she had once believed them to be. Naivete gave way to clarity, and Sophia faced the inner battle she could no longer avoid. She had to choose between her father and her mother. One late afternoon, after leaving school, Sophia gripped her mother's hand tightly, her eyes glowing with determination. "Mom, I've thought a lot about everything," she began, her voice trembling but steady. "And I've decided I don't want to live with Dad. I don't want to stay with him and Laura. They don't protect me, and now I see everything they did to you." Cindy felt a rush of relief and emotion flood her chest. "Sophia, are you sure?" she asked, squeezing her daughter's hand, her heart nearly bursting with restrained joy. "Yes, Mom, I want to stay with you. You protect me, you teach me to be strong, and I know you'll fight for us." The girl gave a timid smile, and Cindy realized that despite everything, her daughter still trusted her, still saw her as her safe harbor. Hearing those words, Cindy knew the world was finally starting to change. Sophia's choice wasn't just about where she would live or what her routine would be. It was a choice for truth, love, and protection. Cindy understood then that no matter the lies, the betrayals, or John and Laura's manipulations, there was still something no one could take away. The bond between mother and daughter, the trust and the genuine love forged through pain and resilience. In that moment, Cindy silently vowed to do whatever it took to protect Sophia, rebuild her life, and ensure that no one could ever again threaten her family. Maycow's office was quiet. The only sounds the soft shuffle of papers and the click of a computer mouse. Cindy closed yet another folder of documents, exhausted, drained, but with the satisfaction of finally taking the reins of her own life. Maycow watched her closely, every gesture, every sigh, noticing the strength that grew in her day by day, but also the vulnerability that still flickered in her eyes. "Cindy, you're exhausted," he said, his voice firm but tender. "How about we get out of here for a while? Dinner, just the two of us. No files, no spreadsheets, just you and me." Cindy hesitated, surprised by the unexpected invitation. The world collapsing around her still weighed heavily, but there was something in Maycow that made her trust, relax, and feel safe. "Dinner?" she murmured, lowering her eyes but feeling a spark of curiosity and warmth. "Yes," he insisted, a faint smile on his lips. "Just a moment for you to breathe, to forget for a few hours everything that's been happening, and allow yourself to feel something different, something good." Cindy drew in a deep breath, her heart racing, and finally decided to accept. "Okay, let's go to dinner." The restaurant was discreet, bathed in soft lighting, the atmosphere warm, perfect for conversations that needed no distractions. As they savored their meal, the tension began to dissolve. Maycow spoke little, but every word carried attentiveness, understanding, and respect. Cindy, in turn, found herself comfortable enough to share her thoughts, her feelings, and even the lingering fears she still carried. Between shy laughter and long glances, something more began to grow. An intimacy beyond friendship, a bond forged in pain, trust, and mutual admiration. Days passed, and Cindy's routine began to fall into place again. Maycow's steady presence became a quiet, unwavering support. He always appeared at just the right moments, attentive to Cindy's needs, gradually earning Sophia's trust as well. It wasn't just legal protection, it was genuine care, tenderness, and small acts of kindness that made Cindy feel understood and cherished. "Mom, he's nice," Sophia said one afternoon as she watched Maycow walk off to buy them juice at the park. "I like him." Cindy smiled, her heart warming. Her daughter was beginning to see that, even after the wounds of the past, there were still people capable of supporting, respecting, and truly loving them. The bond between them deepened naturally. Maycow helped Cindy with the clinic's paperwork, guided her through every legal step, but he also shared simple moments, breakfasts, together, laughter in the park, candid conversations about fears and hopes. Sophia, once confused and hurt, began to accept his presence as someone she could trust, someone who didn't threaten her bond with her mother, but instead strengthened and protected it. Every gesture of Maycow radiated safety and affection, and Cindy, watching the two interact, felt a wave of gratitude and hope. Perhaps the family she thought she had lost could, after all, be rebuilt in a genuine way. The following days were intense. Cindy and Maycow reviewed every document, every bank statement, every contract linked to John's businesses, and something quickly stood out: suspicious transfers, hidden accounts, forged records. Maycow frowned as he analyzed the growing pile of evidence. "Cindy, he didn't just betray you," he said, his voice steady and grave. "He hid money, diverted assets, manipulated taxes, everything to leave you with nothing while keeping up his image as a flawless businessman." Cindy's stomach twisted, anger and disbelief tightening around her like a vice. "So everything he put me through, it wasn't just personal betrayal, it was a plan," she whispered, stunned. Maycow laid out each detail, pointing to the documents that exposed the illegal transfers and secret accounts. "And look here," he said, handing her a statement. "He tried to use Laura as a front, but she doesn't seem to have realized the full extent. That strengthens our case of fraud and asset concealment." Cindy breathed deeply, absorbing every word, every piece of proof, a mix of relief and determination swelling inside her. "So we can actually reverse this, show the truth and reclaim what's ours?" she asked, hesitant but hopeful. Maycow gave her a steady smile. "Yes, Cindy, and we'll do it the right way. Justice will be served, and you'll come out of this stronger than you ever imagined." The following week, Maycow's invitation arrived quietly but firmly. A party at the club, a social event mixing friends, acquaintances, and business partners. Cindy hesitated. The weight of the past month still clung to her. But as she looked at the invitation, she realized this could be a moment to breathe, to feel something beyond the pain and the struggle. "I'll go," she said finally, looking at Maycow with a shy but expectant smile. He returned it gently, knowing this decision was more than just attending a social event. It was Cindy's chance to reconnect with life and with herself. That night, Cindy chose an elegant dress that highlighted both her poise and her grace. Every detail, from the shimmer of the fabric to the discreet accessories, spoke of confidence and sophistication. When she arrived, Maycow was waiting, clearly impressed and proud. "Wow, you look stunning," he said softly, genuine admiration in his voice. Cindy's heart skipped, not because of the compliment itself, but because of the rare feeling of being seen, appreciated and recognized, something she hadn't felt in months. Together, they walked into the hall, greeting acquaintances politely but drawing strength mostly from each other's presence, from the shared silence and the unspoken understanding that they were there to support one another and to enjoy a moment of normalcy. The gentle music and elegant conversations in the hall couldn't mask the tension that swept over Cindy when she saw Laura and John enter together. Laura, her pregnancy already visible, walked confidently, smiling and waving at familiar faces. John followed with that arrogant air he always carried, as if the world owed him acknowledgement of his so-called victory. Cindy's stomach clenched, but she held her head high, breathing deeply. At her side, Makau immediately noticed the shift in her expression and placed his hand lightly over hers, a silent gesture of support and protection. John wasted no time. He approached Cindy with a cold, almost mocking smile, as if humiliating her in public was his triumph. "So, Cindy, still clinging to that expensive dress, trying to prove you're doing fine?" He sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm and disdain. Makau, catching John's intent, instantly stepped in front of Cindy. "John, every word you say will be taken seriously. Respect Cindy or deal with the consequences," he warned, firm and resolute. Cindy, drawing a steady breath, felt the anger surge, but refused to give in to the provocation. "John, our fight will be in court, not here," she said, her voice unwavering, filled with determination, leaving no doubt she would not be intimidated in public. The entire room seemed to hold its breath for a few seconds, as everyone sensed the tension between the four of them. Laura tried to step in with a forced smile, but Cindy, standing tall and firm, ignored her completely, directing her gaze only at John and then at Makau. "You can laugh, you can pose for photos, but the truth comes out where it matters. In court," Cindy declared with confidence. Makau stayed at her side, a silent wall of protection and strength, while Cindy felt the force she needed to face every provocation. In that instant, it became clear to everyone present. No matter how much John tried to humiliate her, the final battle would be decided not by arrogance or public show, but by evidence, justice, and integrity. The day of the first hearing arrived, a storm of nerves and determination colliding inside her chest. Cindy walked into the courtroom beside Makau, her step steady, her gaze unshaken, the air around her heavy as lead with tension. Every detail, the hushed silence in the corridors, the restrained whispers from those present, the sharp echo of the judge's gavel, amplified the weight of the responsibility she carried. Sophia wasn't there, but her image lingered in Cindy's thoughts, reminding her of the importance of every word spoken, every piece of evidence presented, every gesture made. Makau, focused and alert, held his folder tight and offered her small, encouraging smiles, reminding her that they were in this battle together. The session began. John walked in elegantly dressed, projecting confidence, flanked by his lawyers. Laura was absent, yet the shadow of her presence hung over every remark, every sideways glance thrown Cindy's way. The judge opened the floor, and both sides began presenting their initial documents and arguments. With firm clarity, Makau laid out the evidence: illegal transfers, account manipulations, hidden assets. Cindy felt the adrenaline surge with each document placed before the judge, realizing that at last someone was capable of turning all her pain into concrete action. John, for his part, tried to maintain his arrogant composure, pretending everything was under control. But the discomfort was visible in his eyes as Makau's evidence grew more organized, more consistent, more damning. Despite the weight of the revelations, the first hearing ended without a final decision. The judge ruled that more evidence would be examined, witnesses called, and that the legal battle had only just begun. Outside the courtroom, Cindy walked beside Makau, feeling both relieved and anxious. "This is just the beginning, but it's already a victory," Makau told her, pressing her shoulder gently. Cindy lifted her eyes to the sky, breathing deeply. Even if the road ahead was long, justice was finally in motion, and every step brought her closer to the moment when truth would prevail. Night fell over the city, a delicate silence, settling in stark contrast to the storm of emotions within her. After days of relentless struggle, investigations and pressure, Cindy finally allowed herself a moment of surrender and intimacy with Makau. He waited for her in his apartment, the room lit by the soft glow of candles casting gentle shadows across the walls, wrapping the space in warmth and romance. The table was set with a small, exquisite meal, delicate dishes, carefully chosen wine, flowers releasing their fragrance into the air. Every detail spoke of thought, care, affection. Cindy's heart raced with the intoxicating feeling of being seen, valued, desired. They began the evening with shy smiles, light-hearted conversation, shared memories, and fresh confidences that deepened their bond. Makau held her hands tenderly, his eyes fixed on hers, radiating trust and security. Every touch, every word felt like a balm, soothing the wounds John had left behind. The wine warmed them, and their silent closeness transformed the atmosphere into a world of their own. Slowly, respectfully, with tenderness, they began to explore not only the passion that had been simmering between them, but the emotional intimacy that had been growing for weeks. When they finally surrendered to each other, it was with a slow, intense rhythm, full of raw emotion. Every kiss, every caress, every sigh carried not only desire, but also the profound sense of healing, trust, and genuine love. Entwined with Makau, Cindy felt that for the first time in so long, she could relax, trust, and allow herself to be fully loved. The walls, built from fear and pain, dissolved into tenderness and mutual surrender, leaving them in a state of emotional and physical ecstasy. In that moment, Cindy understood. True love was not only passion, it was safety, care, and unshakable companionship. The following week, the courtroom was heavy with silence and expectation, as though every wall was holding the weight of weeks of legal battles. Cindy entered with Makau at her side, her demeanor calm and assured. Every step was a step toward justice, toward reclaiming her life. John, elegant and arrogant as always, maintained his cold facade. But the cracks were visible. The mountain of evidence against him was organized, irrefutable. Laura was absent once again, clinging to her illusion of victory, yet the shadow of her pregnancy and the lies of the past loomed over every move John made, leaving him vulnerable under the judge's scrutiny. The hearing began. Makau presented each piece of evidence with surgical precision: illegal transfers, account manipulations, concealed assets, forged documents. Witnesses testified, bank statements were dissected, contracts examined line by line. The picture became undeniable. John had not only betrayed Cindy, he had ruined her financially, manipulating and deceiving her for years. The judge, attentive to every detail, listened gravely, weighing the extent of John's fraud and deceit. Sitting beside Makau, Cindy felt a wave of confidence surge through her. Each revelation was a silent triumph over the pain and betrayal she had carried. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. Cindy would recover all the assets that had been wrongfully taken from her, including the clinic, the house, and the hidden financial resources. John was also ordered to pay damages, both material and moral, publicly acknowledging the extent of his fraud and manipulation. Cindy drew in a deep breath as a flood of relief. Emotion and fulfillment filled her chest. Sophia, present this time, threw her arms around her mother, tears streaming down her face, finally recognizing the strength and justice of the woman who had always protected her. Makau smiled at Cindy, his gaze speaking louder than words. Together they hadn't just won the courtroom battle, they had rebuilt life, trust, and true love. 2 years passed since that decisive trial. Cindy walked the bright corridor of her newly renovated clinic, every detail, a reflection not just of professional success, but of her restored dignity and self-worth. The clinic thrived like never before, clients and colleagues alike admiring her competence and resilience. At her side, Makau walked in with a smile, bringing her coffee and updates for the day. Their intimacy had blossomed into a love that was genuine, steady and serene, built on trust and deep companionship. Sophia, now more mature, helped her mother with small tasks at the clinic, laughing with them. Both secure and happy, alongside the stepfather who loved her like his own daughter. John, meanwhile, was drowning in debt, isolated from the world he once believed he ruled. His arrogance had crumbled into the bitter awareness of his own choices. Laura had left him when the creditors came knocking. She moved to another city, rebuilding her life in anonymity, paying the price for the choices she had made. Reflecting on these losses, Cindy felt a wave of gratitude and relief. Everything that had once destroyed, her life had now been dismantled by justice and time. On a sunny afternoon, Cindy, Makau, and Sophia strolled through the park near their home, smiling, chatting, their bond as a family stronger than ever. Cindy looked up at the sky and smiled to herself. "I'm grateful to those who betrayed me. Because of you, I discovered who truly loves me. I lost a false life and gained a real one." Sophia hugged her mother, feeling protected and cherished, while Makau held Cindy's hand firmly, tenderly. The painful past, the lies, betrayals, and losses had transformed into lessons, into the foundation of a new story filled with love, justice, and genuine happiness. Cindy knew that the greatest revenge was her life rebuilt, with peace, love, and hope for the future. And you? Do you believe that even after the deepest betrayal, it's possible to rise again, to find true love, and to live fully in the happiness you deserve? Thank you for staying with us until the end. You are a vital part of this channel. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. That way, you'll help us keep creating new stories of love and fresh beginnings. Until the next story of romance and resilience.